All right, everyone, welcome back to the Modern Times podcast. This is going to be our second commentary track. The first one we did last week, and we did Burlesque on Carmen, and that was very well received.
A lot of fun.
It really was. It really was. And we didn't have Sarah with us last time, but she's
No,
here.
I'm here now.
Every, everybody's here together, and we're going to tackle the next SNA film that is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. And Anne, I'll go ahead and let you take over from here.
I mentioned that the release date for this film, all right, it was completed, of course, before Charlie left at the end of 1915. But I had thought it was released May 27th, 1916. But in fact, it was released on March 27th, 1916.
How could you?
Yeah, I know, right? Now, the only explanation that I have read is that the reason that they held up releasing this, unlike with Carmen, where they went in and, kind of butchered it, they just held on to police because they were trying and keep as much Chaplin material as possible and try and just, extend out, I guess, the gravy train. Because most sources believe that the version of Police that is shown, the two-reeler, is the one that Charlie edited, and that's the version that he wanted. The outtakes from Police made it into Triple Trouble, plus some actual footage from Police that we're going to see made it into Triple Trouble. But this is the version that Chaplin supervised, and like SNA did not tamper with this film. Anything that's in it is what Charlie wanted. They didn't take stuff out.
Now, over the last commentary, when we talked about Carmen, we mentioned that there are multiple different versions of this film floating around.
Oh, correct.
Over the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's the version we're going to watch, which is the Chaplin approved directed two-reeler, which I consider obviously the only true version of the film.
Correct.
And then there's a version that was released in, I don't know, the late 80s from the film documentary The Chaplin Puzzle.
I think it was 1992.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it has Burgess Meredith narrating it. It's kind of a documentary about Chaplin at SNA and Keystone, his first couple years. And what they attempted to do was they took some of the footage that Charlie discarded, and it was used in other SNA padded Chaplin films, and tried to do a reconstruction of Police, but it's kind of accurate, but kind of not, because at this time Charlie was working on a film called Life, which he had hoped to be a feature film. Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Police kind of a truncated version of the feature film Life that Charlie wanted to put together at SNA?
The only thing that's strange is the fact that Life, by most sources, was filmed in the summer of 1915. Police was filmed after Shanghai, which was released in October, and filmed before. You have Shanghai, you have A Night in the Show, which was released at the end of November, and then you have Police being filmed, and then Carmen. Sort of like in the autumn of 1915. So Life was filmed in summer of 15, and Police was filmed in the autumn. Now, the only thing after me reading, and I'm truly wondering if the extended Das House version that's in Triple Trouble, I'm wondering if that was never intended for Life. Like that footage is actually from Police, and I'm wondering if maybe he wanted, he filmed that version, which is very involved and is kind of gruesome, because the character in the extended version of the Das House, he comes in with a cigar, he's self-assured, he just goes walking in there. But in Police, he has no money. He tries to get himself into there, by feigning being sick, and then he doesn't have the money and he has to leave. So I'm thinking that extended version of the Das House was actually filmed while he was in production Police, and discarded it and did another version of, the Doss house where he comes in and, he doesn't have money. And
This was at a point where Charlie was really fighting for his creative independence, and he wasn't getting it at SNA.
so possibly the only part of the film Life was the kitchen scene with Edna. She's a scrub woman, and he's dumping garbage on her and he's fighting with Billy Armstrong. So I'm thinking that possibly is the only footage from Life. And I'm thinking that extended version of the Doss house that they stuck in Triple Trouble, that he had actually filmed during police and for whatever reason removed it. That's because I looked, the identical Doss house. I'm looking at the writing on the wall. It's the same thing. I'm looking at the scratches on the door. It's the same set.
Exactly.
So
Filmed at the
I'm
same time, yeah.
right, because I'm thinking, all right, did he film that extended version in the summer of 1915 and the set stayed there until he filmed Police? That's the only. So I'm just wondering if the only thing of life that exists is, truly that he was going to do for the film Life is the scenes with Edna in the kitchen.
We'll definitely get into Triple Trouble because that's a show on all onto itself. But and if we concentrated on talking about SNA and Triple Trouble during the whole police
Right, exactly.
episode, I think it takes away from this particular version, which is the one that he intended. And like I said, over the last 100 years, it's gotten edited and gotten reissued and gotten scenes added in and scenes taken out. But now with this new SNA Flicker Alley set, you can see the Chaplin approved directed version, which I rewatched it
Hmm.
yesterday and
Right.
I didn't realize it had so much social commentary that it does.
I think if it wasn't attached to Triple Trouble, just rumors or whatever, I think it would just be standalone as one of his best SNA films. I mean, it's just the camera work that he used in this film. I don't believe he ever used again. It's really, I mean, the story is great. You're right. It has a lot of social commentary, and Edna just looked, oh, she looks stunning. She really looks stunning.
Something that I realized while watching this is that this could take place because all the Chaplin films kind of are on their own. Like you don't really connect. Some people try to connect the stories, like in the circus after he walks off into the sunset in the circus, then he ends up on the statue in City Lights.
Right,
Some people
right,
try to connect the films as if they're all one running piece, but they have always been just standalone movies that don't really have anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
right.
But as I watch this film, I'm thinking this could have been the same tramp from The Kid.
Yeah. And probably he did, get inspired by police, because there's a Doss house in The Kid, and
It's the same world. It's the same world that the kid lives in.
right.
That the
In this
tramp and the kid lives in. Yeah.
in this film, he's just trying to catch a break and he can't.
Basically, the whole movie revolves around him losing the couple coins that he has on him, and
Right.
what happens because he loses those coins. I mean, that is reminiscent of the next year when he'd make the Immigrant.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's what. Okay, you mentioned that, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm such an idiot. I'm thinking the pawn shop because they did a coin toss. But yeah, you're right.
I learned a lot about rewatching this film and their restored version because it's easy to condense all these SNAs as fluff. Not necessarily fluff, but you know what I mean. Kind of in
Right.
the same vein as the Keystone films. Nobody really takes them that seriously. But
Yeah.
when you watch this, it's like, okay, this could have been a story that he had done 10 years later.
Oh yeah, it has more substance than his earlier SNAs, and for sure the Keystones.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, you've been so quiet. Why don't we let you talk for a little bit?
Oh, I don't know. I just it's been a while since I've watched this, so
All right, everyone, we are watching this version of Police on the newly restored SNA DVD Blu-ray set by Flicker Alley, and when we say hit play, we'll go ahead and do that. So we're gonna count down from three, three, two, one, play.
All right. So now it says police.
All right, there we go. Another restored title card looks very good compared to the last version that was
mm,
released.
Now this is interesting. It shows Billy Armstrong as the miser. And that's a head scratcher for me because I'm trying to figure out where is the miser in this film. The
And
only miser. Hmm.
and this is the first time that you see Charlie exiting prison, I think in a Chaplin film.
No,
Yeah.
maybe Modern Times has him exiting.
But
Um.
this is the first time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
The interesting thing is, this is his last film purportedly for SNA. So he leaves jail, and then his last film for Mutual and First National, he's escaping jail.
Hmm.
He, Here he's convict 999.
And he's just been released, and that's Wesley Ruggles, right?
No, no. According to James Nybar, this is Billy Armstrong.
Okay. Yeah, there's been a little conflicting information on who that person is.
Right.
And of course, this echoes the rise of the televangelists that we
Yeah.
have today. Most certainly, I think
And
anyway.
televangelism really had a rebirth. Well, a birth in the 20s too.
Right. Correct.
Prohibition and everything like that.
And there he is, being all sad.
It makes you wonder what happened. He ended up in jail.
Right.
Hmm.
They don't give the backstory for that.
Now they let you fill that in yourself.
Maybe from a previous film.
So Charlie's buying into his rhetoric. I mean, the it's so amazing, the clarity of these films, the things you can see
Yeah.
that you never were able to before. I mean, it's just, oh, it's just amazing.
They've removed all those scratches and whatnot.
Now
And
Charlie's
here's
off onto his own here. And you know who that actor is?
James Kelly,
Ah,
who played in a lot of his Mutual films. He's like the little Irish guy. He played Edna's father in The Rink.
oh, of course. Okay, okay. And nowadays, Charlie just check his cell phone.
Hmm.
So Charlie looked at the guy's watch and he was going to take it, but then he's like, "No, I'm going to be good and do good." And this and this is Leo White.
He
It's a strange
looks like
costume.
Got
a cartoon character.
he's got a pillow stuffed under his shirt.
Yeah.
Now this scene reminds me of in King Kong when Ann Darrow tries to steal an apple from the vendor.
The thing here is Charlie thinks he has his money, so he's testing like all of the fruit.
It's like this is something that you would see later on in the Immigrant when he's in the restaurant and he
Right,
thinks
Yeah.
he has the money that's dropped out of his pants.
right, yeah. Now he's looking everywhere.
And this is funny too because this guy never expects somebody he stole money from to come back.
Right,
He gets so freaked out when Charlie comes back asking about things.
right.
It's like he's good in his element, but when somebody comes back and questions what's going on, he gets freaked out and runs away.
So Charlie keeps looking.
And even he's surprised, like, why is this guy back?
But then once again, this is the watch that makes him suspicious. So if Charlie
Right,
hadn't been playing with that pocket watch a minute ago, he probably wouldn't have even thought of what
and
had
now
just
Going
he's
happened
after
to
him.
him.
I love this. He's like,
Once again,
But
playing right to the audience, center of the frame.
right.
It's no question why audiences loved him.
Oh.
what a way to get someone's attention.
This is very reminiscent of me. Man, all these backgrounds and everything look just like straight out of The Kid.
Now,
Yeah. Or
this is a
even
real,
Easy
or
Street.
even Easy Street in a
Yeah.
way.
this is the real preacher,
Yes.
and this is Fred Goodwin's. And you know that picture that you might have seen? It's a younger tramp, and he's holding a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
This is the person that took the photograph.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and now it's on because he told Charlie, "I'll help you go straight," and Charlie's had
He
enough with
thinks the beard was a disguise.
Now, it looks to me like this was shot on an actual street because you see people in the background.
Oh, I'm sure.
Uh,
I'm sure SNA
and
use.
look at if
Yeah,
you
you're
look off
right.
to the
Yeah,
left,
yeah,
you can
definitely.
see people are
Oh,
looking
see,
at
they're
him.
like watching him.
Off to the
Yeah,
left.
yeah, that's really.
I'm sure the cameraman's like, get out of the frame.
Charlie's probably pissed that people were visible in his frame too.
Yeah.
Now, here's something I noticed. It says clean beds, and then I see this weird thing under it. So I try to Google translate it, and the closest thing I could come to is like it's Portuguese, meaning clean beds.
Huh.
Um,
Jeez.
yeah, because I was like, why does it say that under there?
Maybe there's lots of Portuguese people who lived around there.
I
I don't
mean,
know. That's something I could post and see if anybody knows
yeah,
the history behind that, or it could just be somebody at SNA goofing with us.
yeah, that's true. Now, in some earlier versions of this is tinted because if you look, it says it opens at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
and
like
the
the
door,
old restored versions from
right,
1999 had this tinted. Like I said, it's so dark that you could barely see
right. But
anything.
this is
Uh-huh.
supposed to be nighttime, but
It's clearly like 3 in the afternoon.
They had a hard time filming night scenes during the silent era. Like if you watch Nosferatu, he's
mhm,
supposedly killed by sunlight at the end, but in the whole film he's walking around in the daytime if you don't watch a
Yeah.
tinted version. So
right,
I can understand why silent films are hard for modern audiences sometimes to digest because
right.
you kind of have to know this stuff already.
Uh-huh.
That reminds me of the handkerchief that in City Lights that's sticking out of the tramp's pants.
And
This
there's a
is
lot
so
more graffiti on the wall that you can analyze if you wish.
This guy here is Snub Pollard.
yeah.
That's James Kelly, and this is Bud Jameson. And look how Charlie has him acting. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who these next cast of characters are.
It looks like the tramps from every other film of the silent era.
Right.
Like the knockoff tramps.
And like I said, early on in pre Chaplin, the word tramp was normally used as like a derogatory thing.
Yeah.
A tramp was a person like this.
A
Charlie
vagabond.
kind of
Yeah.
came along and changed the meaning of it.
Hmm.
So when people heard the word tramp, they didn't necessarily think something bad. They always thought of Chaplin. He kind of stole that word for himself.
Well, originally, what it meant was when men had to try and find work, they would walk. Of course, that they didn't have transportation, so it was kind of tramping around. But then the problem is some of these people that were looking for work, got into no good and they'd be stealing and, that kind of thing. So it ended up getting.
And
And there,
this is funny too because he's copying what the guy before him just
right,
just did to try to get in for free.
he's doing a fish face. And there he goes. And that's it for the DOS house in this version.
Hmm. And it looks just like the sleeping quarters that was in The Kid too,
Oh
and
yeah.
that, or the professor.
And it's strange. Leo White is playing at the time a stereotypical Jewish proprietor, um,
Hmm.
just like Henry Bergman played in the DOS house.
Hmm.
Oh, did you see how he flipped over? Oh my God!
Yeah, well, I mean,
Ooh.
one would think they were prepared for those kind of falls.
Now this is Wesley Ruggles, and some people think he is the man that in the pawn shop that comes in and tries to, like he's an actor and he's trying to get the tramp to buy something. Remember, he's the one that bamboozled him in the pawn shop.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think that this is the same person. This reminds me of the Gold Rush. Remember how he kept trying? to get the gun away.
And
Yeah.
also City Lights when he's trying to tell the cop that the gun isn't his, but he's waving it at him.
Correct. Now, see, I love this iris. I mean, that's he didn't do that very often.
But when he did, it was effective.
Correct. Yeah.
So so Charlie is essentially, oh, now this is a cool shot. This is almost right out of German expressionism.
Oh,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I love that part. He's mad. You see his head shaking. Oh, there goes the hat pop.
definitely.
But there you can tell who that is. You can get
Right.
every bit of body language and
Yeah,
personality.
this is very German expressionist.
Now
This
she's been out of jail for what, 10 minutes, and he's already breaking into a house.
this
By
this
the
part
front door, too.
this part cracks me up. This whole scene. Yeah. This.
Now this is reminiscent of also in The Kid when he's fixing the windows, and the cop comes up behind him and he doesn't realize that he's back there.
Yeah. And look, Charlie like dee 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 dee. God. And that's John Rand.
Hmm.
Now something I noticed about the cops in this film is like if you compare them to the Keystone Cops, they're very passive. Like
And
at the end when they're driving to Edna's rescue, they're all
and,
smoking cigars. They're all relaxed. I
and
almost wonder if
Chaplin.
that was a play on the Keystone
Yes,
Cops.
it was. That was Chaplin doing, a reversal of the Keystone Cops. They're still trying. I mean, they're still trying to get in with that mallet.
Okay, you think by now he would have woken up the whole house, as as noisy as he is with that window.
This, oh my God, this part. He's like, the front door's open.
So dumb.
A bit of that's a bit of subtlety you didn't always see in these
Oh
old
yeah,
films.
yeah.
The key.
Mhm.
Yep. All these SNA films had these staircases
Yeah, that staircase sort of looks like from The Woman.
and work too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the same one. There's a lot of cool things to see. Now, if you look in certain scenes here, you'll see the flowers blowing, and there's a tablecloth that moves, and
Oh God.
that's because everything was filmed on an open air set. It was exposed to the elements. So if the wind came through, they couldn't help to have the curtains
Right.
or the tablecloths move. And if you watch the Robert Downey Jr. Chaplin movie, you can see how they had that set up in the silent era. Because they used natural light to film most
Yeah.
things. They didn't have a lot of, you know,
What is
Artificial.
that thing in his hand, and what is that supposed to be for?
it looks like what he made the Swiss cheese out of in modern times.
Yeah.
This is a great shot.
Oh yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah. See this, and they're drinking tea, and you know.
Now, of
Like,
course,
don't
Edna
touch
Purviance makes her first, or Purviance, as
Right.
I've been told is the correct pronunciation. And there's a film, like I said, there's a film from 1913 called Suspense, and it was directed by Lois Weber, a female film director, and I think she stars in it too. If you watch that film and compare it to this, it's very similar. The gangster in the film looks just like the gangster that's working with Charlie. Edna's dressed very similar to how the Lois Weber is dressed in that film. And if it came out in 1913 and was successful, it's no doubt in my mind that Charlie saw that and
Oh
could have
yeah.
been inspired by it.
it.
And SNA, ironically enough, in advertising said this film was Chaplin said this was his funniest picture. I know that's just the marketing team at its best, but
Right.
I don't know if he felt that way because this is almost more of a drama than it is a comedy.
Yeah, it's um like a light drama.
But there's some definitely see
There's
there's the tablecloth going there.
now. Is this a refrigerator or a stove or an oven?
I think it's an oven.
Let's see when he opens it. Yeah, it's an oven. Looks like, but he's acting like it's a safe. or hoping it was a safe.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't look like, I mean, like I said, he tried so hard to go straight when he comes out of the prison.
It's like the oven could be a cell in a way.
Mm-hmm. But he's easily corruptible, because that's the world that the tramp
Yeah. And this is
inhabits.
a little bizarre that this whole, you know,
Sequence.
yeah. Now that's a great shot, but I'm sure
Oh.
that's not actually down his pants.
Mhm.
This is going to be the rest of the commentary, us just laughing at the the movie.
And then, oop, there he goes. He's like, this guy's a complete dumbass. He's
Like, have you ever robbed a bank before, a house before?
I know. He's like, this is not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
And this part's great too. I mean, he steals everything that's worthless in the house, including the water from the flower vase. This guy's had it.
Oh wow.
Oh my god.
And this is straight out of modern times too. He never forgot anything. He always
Yeah.
found a way to reuse it.
Yeah. These are great close-ups because you just don't see these in Chaplin films.
All that often, yeah.
Now Edna here, she pulls. Does she have a name in this film? I think she's just woman in the house, pretty much,
Right.
right?
I didn't realize how long her hair was.
Oh yeah.
Now she's come up
Women.
with a deceptive move here to keep them in the house while the police show up. Now I don't
Right.
think this would ever work today.
No, she was.
She invites them in for tea. Like, well, if you're
She
gonna
was way
sneak,
too calm.
yeah. Well, I mean, she has her own motive,
Right.
which
It's like
which is pretty smart when you think about it. But I don't think in reality this would ever work.
Right.
trying to use psychology.
Hmm. Yeah, Edna's hair was very long, just like other women, because no one really started cutting their hair short until like the 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ann and I in an earlier commentary we mentioned how Edna's looks very much suited the teens, but
Hmm.
Right.
when it went into the 20s and she tried to adapt her look, I don't think it worked as well. I think she looks best in this time period.
Yeah, she looks youthful and
Wow.
it suits the
That's a great
time.
shot here.
Oh yeah, those are pretty rings.
And then it goes up to her face. I mean, he really SNA he experimented a lot and he never seemed to go any further with it. He just tried
Yeah, he's just
things.
And
trying
I
to
don't think SNA cared too much for his experimenting. I think they wanted him just to crank out his films and get him out there. And I think they became
yeah.
very annoyed with the amount of time he was taking to get these out.
Uh-huh.
But there's a reason why we're talking about these films 100 years later, and it's because he fought for that right to be creative.
Uh-huh.
Because it appears to me reading these old magazines, people just didn't care as long as they had Charlie Chaplin on the screen.
Yeah.
And
And
that
SNA
shows and
that.
that shows because they were going to see fake Chaplin comedies that weren't even him.
All right, that's it. She told him, let me help you go straight. And he's like, I'm out of here. That was it. Yeah.
He's on the fence right now. I mean, I don't think he
Right.
wants to be doing this, but like I said,
He doesn't have much of a choice.
in the world he lives in, this is what you
Right.
have to do to
Survive.
survive. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
like he's gonna take the piano. I mean, he's
he tries
not
everything.
very bright in this film, or he's not skilled as a a burglar.
No. Like there's some good in him, but he's being corrupted by his cellmate.
Hmm.
there's sunlight coming through. You see that on his
Yeah,
arm? There's sunlight coming through the
it was.
just stuff you couldn't really do anything about back then. But once again, I think that makes these films more interesting to watch because you get to see things like that. The mother that you never see.
Yes.
Right.
She could be lying for all we know.
And this is where you really see where Charlie stands as far as
Again, he.
His morality, yeah.
But that's it. That's it. As soon as he started manhandling her,
Yeah. It's like,
he tells him to stop. Let's
yeah.
go. And he does it again, and that's it. He's up.
It's like, that's enough.
And he's still trying to to talk to him. To
He,
stop. Let's
yeah,
just take our loot and go.
Yeah.
he's
Like,
being the rational one here, yeah, which is ironic for him.
Although Charlie appears to be making a lot of noise when he's yelling at him, but I love this part. But yeah, I mean, that's a great
well
idea.
choreographed, yeah.
Now he's got the advantage.
Mm-hmm. Just like in war, being on the high slope, you have the advantage.
This film, to me cements the classic tramp that we think of today. It was almost fully formed by this time.
Right. I mean, and he had really transitioned from the Keystones. And here he's definitely making fun of them.
Screw it.
Yeah. And here they come. Dee dee dee.
And you have to wonder, did Senate? Do you think Senate saw these SNA films
Probably.
Yeah.
the whole time, thinking, "Damn, how did I let this guy go?"
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. That was definitely a blunder. Now here he looks like a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
The way he's jumping.
Definitely.
Now this guy in the suit is they do a fake one, right? In Triple Trouble. Is he the one with the
I
fake
think
sideburn?
so. Yes, yes, because they dressed up somebody else to look like him so they could shoot more footage. And it's funny because when you watch The Tramp, when he gets shot at the end, it's supposed to
Hmm.
be all like sentimental, but here he just got shot about 15 times and nothing happened. So
And see, it's nighttime right now, but it's daylight.
that poor guy, he can't catch a break. One day before retirement.
So now he's got arrested. Edna tells them that's her husband, and then watch how his whole persona changes. See, he's
It's
he
like that
takes on
right.
that role. Yeah.
This reminds me of The Adventurer when he's pretending like he's the socialite at the party.
Yeah.
And look at that cop in the back. He keeps checking out Edna. He can't keep his eyes off of her.
I think he's like, what woman would be with this guy?
Suspicious, yeah.
And I'm trying
He's
to
the only one that's not that thinks something's up.
look at Charlie's like. Now I think that the guy with the monocle is it Fred Goodwin or Billy Armstrong? One of them played the preacher, but I don't know which one it was.
Now, is this a real house that they used?
It
I
looks like a
believe,
real house.
yeah.
It really does. I wonder if it's still there.
See, he had his hat on outside now, but he doesn't. But continuity was not a big thing.
No, I doubt anybody noticed back then either. It's not like today we can rewatch the same films 40 times.
Right. That's sweet. He's giving her
The
her
stuff.
stuff back. Look, he's quietly looking at her butt, and then he stops himself.
See, those little things there are the things I think made the audience. If you
Oh
were
yeah,
watching this with an audience in 1915, I think
he was so relatable.
yeah, those
Like,
subtleties.
I mean, he has respect for her, but he's still a man, and he's like, that's not right.
I wonder where that costume is today. I wonder what happened to it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
All of them. They probably got trashed.
And
Yeah.
really, she's the first person with any humanity that he's encountered since his, what, half hour out of jail?
Yeah.
It seemed like he got out of jail and this happened. That's a great shot. I mean, these restorations, the things that you can see.
Well, here we go.
And he got the coin back that he lost at the beginning. The whole reason for the entire film
Yeah.
was based around that coin he lost.
There
He
we go.
never really looks back when he's walking down the road in other movies with this end shot.
And the first time he did this was in the Tramp. This
Yeah.
is, I think, the second time. I think he started to realize this was kind of his.
But it's not an open
Signature.
road because there's a mansion up there.
Yeah. But still, the whole idea of him walking into the sunset was kind of a thing that started to develop here in the
Right.
SNA films. I think he realized that was a cool way to end his films.
Yeah.
But he didn't overuse it. So,
No, 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 not at all.
Now,
And he always made it a little bit different too.
right.
exactly.
You were talking earlier about Chaplin puzzle that's narrated by Burgess Meredith. One of the interesting things is there's a title card in there. You know how when Edna and Charlie first meet in the, her parlor,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's an intertitle card that says he remembers the girl from the kitchen. So in Chaplin Puzzle, they're trying to make the connection between the girl in the kitchen from Life, and then in Triple Trouble, and then it was put into the Chaplin Puzzle. He's trying to make the connection that the girl in the kitchen is this woman here. The thing where it gets confusing is the girl in the kitchen, uh, you know, that's scrubbing the floor. It's a menial task, and yet she's living in this house that's, it's a beautiful house and furnishings. So how could that be the same person?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Chaplin puzzle edit of Police is just kind of a fan. I look at it as an interesting fan
Right.
project,
Oh
a kind of
yeah.
a what if. I'm happy that it exists, and the soundtrack is actually very well done. They actually released the soundtrack to the Chaplin puzzle on CD.
I'm not coming to these observations on my own. It's from reading, and two of the, for me, the best sources on his SNAs is James Nybar Chaplin at SNA, and then the one that came before that is Charlie Chaplin at Keystone and SNA by Ted Akuta and David Maska, and they're the ones that point these things out. It's not like I made these observations, on my own. I do make observations on my own about certain things, but this particular one, I didn't come to that conclusion on my own.
Now, in that very same book that you were just talking about, I found this paragraph which I'd like to read. It's really interesting, and it's what opened my eyes to the fact that this isn't just a silly comedy S&A film that a lot of people think of when they think of the early Chaplin years. It says, Police is the first Chaplin comedy to seriously deal with the power of redemption and how one act of kindness is all it takes to change a person's life. Charlie, surrounded by corruption and momentarily seduced by it, finally finds someone who believes in him. Even though he walks away alone at the conclusion, he's more secure because his faith in humanity has been restored. As a result, his future seems brighter than ever before.
Yeah, and that's Ted Akuta, and I think that's on page 144. But yeah, I mean that is a great observation, and it's just really unfortunate more people don't know about this film.
Yeah.
It his SNA and Keystone periods, people, either want to ignore or
I think these new restored versions are going to change that because, like I said before, now you could really only see these in the public domain, really terrible
oh,
quality prints on those cheap DVDs and VHS tapes. But now that you can really study them, I think they'll probably be brought into a new light, which is the reason why I think the Chaplin estate had something to do with this, because maybe they're interested in maybe bringing more attention to these films now that they've been restored.
the thing about SNA is it seems like it started, with his new job and A Night Out were really Keystone-esque, frantic fist fighting, the whole thing. And it seemed by the time he got to Burlesque, Carmen, and Police, he was more refined, and they were closer to. I mean, especially Police was closer to what would be his Mutual period, and even then he transitioned. The thing about the Tramp is he continually evolves. He didn't just stay, one way.
That's another way you can relate him to the Beatles too, because they constantly were evolving. They never stood still in their music. You know, if they did something one way on one record, they do something another way on another, just to keep moving forward.
And
That's right.
with Chaplin's personal evolution, it also helped evolve filmmaking in itself, not just the cinematography and visual effects, but also storytelling as well.
I think with SNA, he did so much experimenting that he never used again. A jitney elopement with the car chasing scene, and work when he was going up the hill, and the camera was at a certain angle. The cinematography in Police was beautiful. The irises, the like you said, the shadow like on the wall of the house. I mean, it's like he tried something. I think in his new job, there's a scene where it's what do they call that? Like a traveling shot, like a panning shot where the
Yeah.
camera is moving. And there's one part in that where he does that. And then it just seemed like he tried something. It was almost like, all right, I can do it. And then he just moved on to his own, style.
Well, the thing is too, if you watch the first couple SNA films and compare them to these last few, it's almost like as Charlie got more innovative and more creative in his filmmaking is when he started to annoy SNA more and more.
That's,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you probably you're probably right because I mean Keystone, I don't believe, did it, or Mutual. SNA took advantage of every bit of Chaplin footage, and when they didn't have new footage, they did compilations, they strewn films together. I mean, they really got every dime out of the Chaplin name.
Oh, definitely.
Now, how did this film do when it came out? It was the last SNA film released. Am I right?
That's correct.
That's what I thought. It is, but it isn't. The thing is, the two real Carmen, I've seen advertisements in the magazines. It was supposed to be released December of 1915, but I don't know if it ever actually made it onto the screen. I don't know if SNA released it for a short time, pulled it back, and padded it, or if the first time anybody ever saw Carmen was in April of 1916.
I think we mentioned the last episode that you said it may have come out for a very limited release, and then it was pulled because they realized they could extend it. Maybe when they realized Charlie was leaving, they
Yeah.
thought, well, let's pull that film and pad it out and make it a feature. Maybe we can make some more money off
So
of it that way.
if that is the case, then in fact, Police was the last Chaplin supervised film that was released, and it was released in March 27th, 1916. Like I said earlier, I don't know why I thought it was May. So, Police was actually released before the padded version of Carmen.
Hmm.
So it would be considered the last true Chaplin film, for SNA.
And not a bad way to go out. I mean, like I said, it really cements his character for moving on to when he signed up with a Mutual in 1916. Now, at this point, was he already signed to Mutual, or was he in negotiations with them when he was making Police? Because I think
I
he was already halfway out the door.
Yeah, I believe he started talking with Mutual, and Sydney was talking to them like in the summer of 1915. The actual paperwork, the contract signed, wasn't signed until the end of February of 1916. So when he left SNA in December, he didn't have the paperwork all signed. It wasn't official. But SNA did try. They wanted to keep him. They wanted to give him 500,000 for 8 films, but Mutual was giving him more creativity. And on top of the fact, I'm sure Charlie wanted to end his relationship with SNA. He wasn't about to go through that. And it's just unfortunate. Police and Carmen, Burlesque on Carmen, are two of his best SNAs, but they're mired in, you know, uh, Carmen padded, Police with Triple Trouble, and it's. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
you're
Or,
right. You're right. I mean, over the last 100 years, and that's kind of why we did these two commentaries back to back, was
Yeah.
because Carmen and Police, like you said, have been mired for over 100 years in these different versions and taking footage out and using it in other films. And because of that reason, like I said, we don't think they're as appreciated as they should be. And as I said, the new, SNA Blu-ray set by Flicker Alley is a fantastic way to really reappreciate these films in the way they were supposed to be seen originally.
Yeah.
right.
That's the reason why we're kind of doing these commentaries, is because that's the one thing that I think is missing from the new set is a commentary track to really give people insightful information on why these films are important and what was happening behind the scenes. The Keystone and SNA are two of my favorite Chaplin eras, and it's because there's so many question marks about all this stuff. We know how he did Modern Times, we know how he did the Gold Rush, but these early years, there's been so much misinformation out there
Yeah,
that it's interesting to go back and even if we're not 100% right all the time, it's interesting to go back and talk about it.
yeah,
Yeah, we're
because
not experts at all. We just happen to know a lot.
it's like even with the kid and the gold rush and the circus, all behind the scenes was drama and different things. But we know that, like we have that information. We know about the gold rush and getting married and
And
you
the
know,
circus with the divorce and
right.
the burning of the studio, the set.
And even city lights with it taking like 3 years and firing people. We know that, but these early films. And the thing I think, like with Keystone kept reissuing his films or retitling them, but they didn't go in and screw with them. You know what I'm saying? They
Right.
just, it
They took
released.
what they owned.
Right. SNA is the one that just, went in, and I can't help wondering possibly if once they knew that Charlie was going to be leaving them. I mean, I could be wrong that
They lost their cash cow.
Well, they didn't stay open for business too much longer after this either. I mean, once Charlie left, they kind of screwed him over, but then he kind of screwed them over because once he left, they kind of fell apart. And the Triple Trouble, which we'll talk about in a future episode, was to me, it's everything that they put out that was a compilation in
hmm
1915, 1916, or the Padded Carmen was not only them trying to make as much money they could off of Chaplin, but also a way to kind of twist the knife, I think,
right. Oh
because
yeah.
because he pissed them off so much by leaving them.
Well,
Hmm.
that's why with Triple Trouble, he didn't fight them. He didn't take them to court because he lost with Carmen. All he could do was, with his First Nationals, sign them, make sure that people knew that that was, an authentic Chaplin film. But I mean, as soon as he left SNA, shortly thereafter, GM Anderson left SNA. He probably sold his interest to George Spohr. They hired Max Linder
Yeah,
for the SNAs, thinking that he could bring some of that magic back.
yeah,
But I mean, hopefully we'll be able to at some point talk about Max Linder because it's really sad. He went to in World War I. He got injured. I think it was with gas, and he was sick a lot, and
oh
he
my
went
God.
to SNA, but he
No one recovers from that. Like
right. And
my great great grandfather was gassed and he died like 10 years later because of
Oh
lung.
wow.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
gas is not fun.
they were never able to capture the Chaplin magic with Max Linder. And then the most tragic thing is Max Linder and his wife, committed suicide in 1925. I mean, that's just a side note, but you know, so SNA
Well,
thought,
and Max Linder too, for those who may not be aware, was a big influence on Charlie. He was a French comedian,
Yeah,
mhm,
and he was making films 1908, 1909,
yeah.
1910.
Early, he was earlier than
Yeah, and if you watch some of his earlier films, you can definitely see where Charlie got the, I don't
Manner.
know, mannerisms, yeah, that he would use.
and Max Linder is one of the very few people because that's I mean Charlie Chaplin has been criticized for that, for not giving the people that he's worked with their due. And he never actually worked with Max Linder, but he fully acknowledged that Max Linder was a huge influence on him.
Definitely.
You know, one of the few that he actually acknowledged.
Oh yeah.
Now, and before we wrap this up, since this is the last official Chaplin SNA film, and I don't necessarily count Triple Trouble because I don't think that's a real film. It's just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
except, but so SNA closed its doors in what, about 1918, 1919?
Okay, I believe they merged with a company VSLE, Vitagraph. Um, I'll look it up and I'll post it. But they merged with them, and then they became another. You know how people merge and then they
Yeah,
get absorbed. But SNA with George Sport and GM Anderson as it stood, really after Charlie Chaplin left, it started to kind of go downhill. And a lot of people say that GM Anderson left because of what they had done to Charlie Chaplin. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but he was half owner of SNA on top of being, I mean, it was Charlie Chaplin, G.M. Anderson, and Francis Bushman were the three stars of SNA.
Uh-huh.
And when G.M. Anderson left, because he did all those westerns, so yeah, the SNA period is very interesting, but it's just
and then whatever company bought SNA or they merged with had the rights to all those Chaplin films and all
right,
that Chaplin footage, which they could pretty much do whatever they wanted with, and they did. A bunch of compilations were put together using the SNA footage. There was Charlie Chaplin Art of Comedy that came out even in the 1950s or 60s, I think it was.
right,
That just kind of strung, and that's actually available on DVD. They just kind of strung a bunch of the SNAs together as one cohesive film, and and they tinted it and they made it try to make it look all fancy, but that's really not a way to watch those films. You have to watch them as the two reelers. Otherwise, I don't think they're that good when you do it like that. It doesn't work.
the reality is, though, I mean, had SNA not done, let's just say, Triple Trouble, we never would have seen the footage from life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the outtakes, that should have been destroyed. Deeming thing about Triple Trouble, but
And we'll get into that next time because I'm sure that episode's probably gonna be about 2 hours
uh,
with all the
the
identifying
drama, it's a mess.
identifying scenes from what movie they just cut out and pasted into Triple Trouble.
I think now that we're done kind of with SNA per se and moving on, to the Mutual Centennial, I mean, I think it'll be like a breath of fresh air and just celebrating the actual film, not the drama that was going on, behind the scenes.
Agreed. But that drama too is really interesting to talk about because he learned a lot from SNA. He learned what not to do. He learned how to get control of his film so that couldn't be done to him again. So, in a way, he kind of needed it to open his eyes to that fact that people
Oh,
were willing to take advantage of him. Well, thank you for listening and watching this second commentary with us. We're going to go ahead and move on. The next show we're going to do is going to be a regular, straightforward episode, I'm sure. And but we got to do Triple Trouble this year because that's a big, long conversation we could have.
right, yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you again for listening. This has been Sarah Beagleson and
And
Ann Munley. Because I don't think I properly introduced you at the beginning. So,
oh,
all right. Well, I'll see you girls later, and thanks for
okay,
listening.
Thank you.
all right,
Bye bye.
bye.